Okay, so I just rewatched Spider-Man, directed by Sam Raimi, starring Tobey Maguire, Willem Dafoe, and James Franco, as well as Kirsten Dunst. And look, it's been so long since I've seen Spider-Man 2. I mean Spider-Man 1. I first watched it, I think it was like 2004, when I was 7 years old, and I do remember at the time it being, to me, being pretty serious movie, kind of sad, dark, but kind of as time has gone on, I've kind of seen it more in a comic book light. Like, it does have its, I guess it's probably because I saw it when I was a kid and I wasn't, I didn't really, it was kind of like the first real mature M-rated movie that I watched, and I know that different ratings in different countries. I know in Britain it was called 12A, so you had to be at least 12 to see it. And when I first saw it, it did have moments that were shocking to me and moments that were, I felt really, really sad and dark and serious. Like, spoiler alert, the death of Peter Parker, which I thought was a very emotional scene, and a very a really gut-wrenching scene. I mean, when I was a kid, I always teared up every single time I watched that scene. I mean, compared to Spider-Man 2, which is more upbeat and lighter and, kind of funny, and, the first Spider-Man movie is actually pretty fucking serious. It's, it does, play with a lot of, a lot of, psychological factors with, and Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. I mean, on like a comic book point of view, the Green Goblin is he's an intimidating but pretty silly character. But in this movie, he's pretty damn menacing. I mean, the whole backstory of him, becoming the Green Goblin, but the scene of him being, exposed to the gas in that chamber, that wasn't an intense scene, and that was pretty scary the first time I watched it. And overall, the whole transformation of Peter becoming Spider-Man is also very interesting as well. I did like the, I know that this was the first film that kind of gave him the organic web, which the later films, such as the Andrew Garfield film, Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man, as well as the newest Marvel films with Tom Holland, Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home, do away with the organic web and give him a kind of like a web gadget thing that he attaches to his arm, which makes it, I guess, more realistic for the MCU's more, kind of more technology orientated tone, because the MCU is, I know it is wacky and out there, but I mean, like, all the superpowers are kind of based on like technology, and like Captain America is exposed to like chemicals, and Iron Man creates his iron suit out of technology. Spider-Man was bitten by a radioactive spider, but it's kind of glossed over. It's only just slightly mentioned because everybody knows about the origin story of Spider-Man. But with Tom Holland's version, he's just kind of more just really twitchy, like really he's really on edge, but he doesn't actually shoot spider webs from his arms. But with Sam Raimi's films, he does. His DNA is altered by by that radioactive spider, and he has like little things that come out of his fingers, which allow him to climb up walls. And I thought that was a really cool thing that they included in that movie, as well as the the action sequences. I would say that the ending, the final fight between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin is probably the most intense sequence out of the entire Sam Raimi trilogy, because like that sequence, no music, just it's just the sound of, you know, just Peter Parker and Harry Osborn basically just fighting each other, and of course you have the final shot of the glider going into his chest, and you know, like the blood coming out of his mouth, which was also, you know, for a kid pretty intense as well. And overall, I mean, like the whole movie, the entire movie just kind of has like this tragic tone over the entire thing. I mean, it's kind of a tragedy story, you know, that involves the death of Peter's uncle, and also, you know, also involves the death of Harry Osborn, and the whole thing, like, the end of the movie is basically, you know, Peter walking away from like a funeral, feeling responsible not for just the death of his uncle, but for the death of his best friend's father. And now he has to keep his identity from everyone. Then of course Spider-Man 2 comes along, and it has a very different tone. I mean, it's a lot more upbeat, and a lot more kind of a lot wittier, with like more jokes, and kind of like a more sparky script. And but of course Sam Raimi himself, I mean, the way he directed this movie was unique. Definitely his kind of style. I mean, the film feels very gritty and urban, which is good for being set in New York. I mean, like the more modern Spider-Man films are also set in New York, but I mean, New York compared now back to the early 2000s kind of had like a different feel. This movie was also released just after 9/11, so I know a lot of people, the Nostalgia Critic actually pointed this out in the trailer of when the helicopter is being caught between the two Twin Towers. He was talking about, he thought that was the big reveal of Spider-Man, kind of like the movie builds up to this moment, and then it's kind of like this big bank robbery, and then Spider-Man comes out, and but because of 9/11, of course, that movie, that scene was taken out because, you know, it's really offensive, and, you know, it would have, but you know, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. But the way this movie was directed, you know, it really does show, you know, like the grime, and, you know, just the tough nature of New York City and the people who live in it. And it just has this certain, you know, a certain thrill to it, you know, and this a certain feeling to it. And Willem Dafoe does play a really good performance as Green Goblin. I do think that Otto Octavius was a superior villain in Spider-Man 2, but Willem Dafoe does a really good job in this movie. He plays a really menacing and also a really fun villain as well. I mean, like he's cracking jokes, and he's acting all funny, but, you know, he's insane, so he doesn't care. But it is a very enjoyable movie that has a lot of tense moments in it, and I give it a 7 out of 10. It's my second favourite film in the original Spider-Man trilogy. Spider-Man 2 is still my favourite of the original trilogy. I mean, I do like the Homecoming and Far From Home more than this trilogy, but for the time it was groundbreaking. I'm not a big fan of the Andrew Garfield films. I thought Amazing Spider-Man 2 was really boring and didn't really have that atmosphere and soul that Sam Raimi's films had. And also, I do think that the MCU films were more exciting than the Andrew Garfield films. They were more, you know, tech orientated and really, really fascinating. You know, Tom Holland's Spider-Man suit was like really, you know, really detailed and really, but they put a lot of thought into, you know, the way it was crafted and designed. But I digress. This is not an MCU review. This is a review for the 2002 movie. That's all I really have to say about it. It's a very enjoyable movie, and if you haven't seen it, you should definitely see it, because, you know, it's like it's kind of teetering on being almost 2 decades old now, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, definitely